hog butcher for the world, tool maker, stacker of wheat, player with railroads and the nation's freight handler, stormy, husky, brawling, city of the big shoulders. They tell me you are wicked, and I believe them, for I have seen your painted women under the gas lamps luring the farm boys. And they tell me you are crooked, and I answer, yes, it is true. I have seen the gunman kill and go free to kill again. And they tell me you are brutal, and my reply is, on the faces of women and children I have seen the marks of wanton hunger. And having answered so, I turn once more to those who sneer at this my city, and I give them back the sneer, and say to them, come and show me another city with lifted head, singing so proud to be alive, and coarse, and strong, and cunning, flinging magnetic curses amid the toil of piling job on job. Here is a tall, bold slugger, set vivid against the little soft cities, fierce as a dog, with tongue lapping for action, cunning as a savage, pitted against the wilderness, bareheaded, shoveling, wrecking, planning, building, breaking, rebuilding. Under the smoke, dust all over his mouth, laughing with white teeth, under the terrible burden of destiny, laughing as a young man laughs, laughing even as an ignorant fighter laughs who has never lost a battle, bragging and laughing that under his wrist is the pulse, and under his ribs the heart of the people, laughing the stormy, husky, brawling laughter of youth, half naked, sweating, proud to be hog butcher, tool maker, stacker of wheat, player with railroads, and freight handler to the nation. That is a poem entitled Chicago by Carl Sandburg. And this is his complete works, so he wrote a great deal. Welcome to Poetry and Poets with SueAn Stradling-Collins, Director of the Apache County Library District. And today we'll be talking about the poetry of Carl Sandburg. Sandburg was of Swedish descent. He was born in 1878 in Illinois, and he died in 1967, so lived a long life. He, as a young man, became a hobo and hopped on the freight trains and traveled the nation. And during the Spanish-American War, he did enlist and ended up in Puerto Rico. So he had some life experiences. As a young man, he became very interested in Abraham Lincoln, and he is well known for his 4-volume biography of Abraham Lincoln, winning a Pulitzer Prize for that biography, as well as 2 Pulitzer Prizes for some of his collections of poetry. He was married to, I can't think of her first name, but her last name was Steichen, and they had 3 daughters. They raised 3 daughters, Margaret, Helga, and Janet. And so some of his poetry is quite lovely, written to his daughters, and I would like to read one of those to you. It's called Little Girl, Be Careful What You Say. Little girl, be careful what you say when you make talk with words. Words. For words are made of syllables, and syllables, child, are made of air. And air is so thin. Air is the breath of God. Air is finer than fire or mist, finer than water or moonlight, finer than spider webs in the moon, finer than water flowers in the morning. And words are strong, too. Stronger than rocks or steel, stronger than potatoes, corn, fish, cattle, and soft, too. Soft as little pigeon eggs, soft as the music of hummingbird wings. So, little girl, when you speak greetings, when you tell jokes, make wishes or prayers, be careful, be careless, be careful, be what you wish to be. And one of the things I love about Sandburg is that he reminds me of Whitman, for one thing, but also very much a poet of the people. His poem Chicago, if you think about that, the way he describes the city, covering so much of what it is, its strength, as well as, the crime that supposedly was there and all of that. And yet the building of a nation, it's strong. I love that about Sandburg. I love that he captures so many emotions of the people and of the cities and of the things that he cared about. Chicago is one example, and another example of personification is a poem called Fog, and this is probably one of his most famous. The fog comes on little cat feet. It sits looking over harbor and city on silent haunches and then moves on. You might have heard that one before. It's in almost any collection of Sandburg's, is fog. And so that's called personification, when you take something that is not living and you give it living qualities. He did that with fog, and he did that with Chicago, making it sound like a person, giving it human qualities. And the only other poem there's so much. There's not a lot about his life to tell you. He was well known. Marilyn Monroe was a friend of his, as well as many other people. Lived in mainly Illinois for most of his life, and just was loved by the people. I do need to mention that two other things that he did. He wrote and collected children's stories. The Rutabaga stories are from Carl Sandburg. And then he had a collection called the American Song Bag, and he traveled around and collected the songs of the people, folk songs and ballads. And he played guitar and he sang them with a very Swedish accent, as a matter of fact. I don't like his singing. I was surprised when I heard some of his singing. It's not something I found pleasant, not something I like to listen to, but it was interesting. So in that collection, in the American Song Bag, he has the words as well as the tunes. So if you ever find a copy of the American Song Bag, you can play those songs, as well as find the history of many of those folk ballads. And the last one I want to read, having to do with music, is called Jazz Fantasia. And this is an example of onomatopoeia. And I love that word by itself too. But onomatopoeia is when the words reflect the sound or the meaning of it. When I was teaching, I used to tell the students to remember onomatopoeia as Batman words, because if you're my age, you remember on the old Batman show that they would throw up on the screen, bam, whoosh, bang. Those were meant to give you the word for the sound. And so he used that quite often in his poetry. This is one of his most famous, called Jazz Fantasia. And the words themselves are meant to sound like jazz. My reading may not be the very best on it, but I'll do my best. Drum on your drums, batter on your banjos, sob on the long, cool, winding saxophones. Go to it, oh jazzmen. Sling your knuckles on the bottoms of the happy tin pans. Let your trombones ooze and go husha, husha, hush with the slippery sandpaper. Moan like an autumn wind high in the lonesome treetops. Moan soft like you want somebody terrible. Cry like a racing car slipping away from a motorcycle. Cop, bang, bang, you jazzmen. Bang all together drums, traps, banjos, horns, tin cans. Make two people fight on top of a stairway and scratch each other's eyes in a clinch tumbling down the stairs. Can the rough stuff. Now a Mississippi steamboat pushes up the night river with a hoo, hoo, hoo. And the green lanterns calling in the high soft stars. A red moon rides on the humps of the low river hills. Go to it, oh jazzman. Carl Sandburg, delightful. And that's, I guess, all I want to tell you. I enjoy him very much. I have read all of his poetry. I recommend him to you. And don't forget to share our page. Don't forget to like our pages. And we'll be back next year. Don't forget to be listening to poetry each day on the Concho Library site. Bye.